Hey, welcome back. Blessings, everyone. Katie is off on her vacation. And hey, Katie, hope you're having fun. Today we have Matt and Nolan with us from the Astrologers Encyclopedia here on YouTube. Hey, what's up, Matt? Thanks for coming.
Hey guys, thank you guys for having me. Very excited to get into it today. I have no placements in Taurus 1, but I will do my best to commentate anyway.
That's because you have a stellium in Aries. If we wanted you for
I know
the
you
Aries.
missed me on the last one. Yeah. I have 5 planets. I have a planet in every Aries decan. So yeah, but like Elsa was saying, I am the host of the Astrologers Encyclopedia. It's a pretty new project. It's only about a couple months old, and my goal basically is just to compile information that people can come watch my videos, listen to talks and stuff, and have an easy place that's organized and central that you can learn astrology.
It's really high content material for you guys that are studying and wanting to learn astrology, like their visuals and their bullet points that in slides. It's a full-on presentation about the topic that they make. So you guys should definitely check that out.
Yeah, I love it also because, like, you know, if you don't have the resources to take a class right away, but you want to dive in, it doesn't lack anything. Like, it's an extremely good resource for that, for people that maybe can't get themselves through a course like currently or whatever. You could actually supplement if you were taking a course as well, to like review and like hear it in another way and hear it from another person. So yeah, it's an amazing community resource. Thanks for doing that, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, I wanted to extend that shout out and say, go over there right now. We're going to have the links on the description for their channel, and you can just subscribe and you can like their videos. And also that supports the channel for growing, for more people to being able to reach it. The algorithm will share the video with more people if you do that. So please like this video as well if you like it, and our other previous videos if you liked watching that as well, if you can. We'd really appreciate it. And the notification button, the little bell besides the subscribe button, if you hit that, you're going to get notifications every time we put out a Decan update. So we should do that throughout the year, so stay tuned.
Yeah, that's actually really important for small channels too, because you will not see us come up on your feed unless you do that. Like, probably we'll just get buried because of the algorithm or whatever. So okay, cool. And then you're on TikTok and Twitter. You have followings there as well, Matt. But we'll get into like where you guys can find us later at the end of the video. And obviously we'll include all the links and stuff in the description below. So we are in Decan 4 of 36, and this is the first Decan of Taurus. Happy birthday, Tauruses! Taurus is ruled by Venus, so Venus will be the major ruler for all this Decan and the next 2 that follow. Venus is currently in Pisces in her exaltation place, so that's kind of cool. Let's see how that like helps influence these next decans to have Venus in such a good place. And then the moon as well finds her exaltation here in Taurus 1, and it's really similar to how in Aries 3 Venus was the sub-ruler, because here the moon finds her exaltation here in Taurus 1, but then in the following decan in Taurus 2, the moon will be the sub-ruler. So she kind of harkens in a little bit of that magic, finding her exaltation here. And then, yeah, do you guys have anything to add about just that basic intro?
We picked a good time to film this. We have, like you said, Venus is in Pisces, and we have Mercury actually in Taurus 1, making like within half a degree or something a sextile right now. So even though the sun's not there yet, this is a really good time as we're filming it to just kind of enjoy the energy of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been really feeling it, actually. It's been coming through super strong already. I found that as I prepare, like sometimes we have to prepare a little bit earlier. Sometimes we'll record during the decan, sometimes we'll record just a few days earlier. And I always feel the energy as it's about to, as it comes in. And maybe that is just because I'm studying it, and so I'm noticing those qualities. But absolutely, I'm really feeling.
Yeah, it helps you be more aware. And Venus is not going to be in Pisces forever. We're going to experience this energy for a couple more weeks, I think, but it's going to soon enough be in its detriment, but more on that later. As long as it's in Pisces, the planets, especially the sun now about to ingress, going through Taurus 1, should have an easier time. You know, when the ruler is exalted and in a good position in relation to the sign itself, because Venus is sextile to Taurus, being exalted, she's able to provide for the sun good resources. So we should expect good results with that area of the
Yeah,
life.
for sure, just as a general outlook and stuff.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about Venus's exaltation in the moment is that Jupiter is receiving her. So Jupiter is there as well. So we've got this benefic reception of Venus in her exaltation. So yeah, okay. So Taurus 1, Austin calls Taurus 1 the Plow. T. Susan Chang calls it sacred doubt. We've got the magician here that represents Mercury, the magician of power, the magus of power. And then the Hierophant, which is the Taurus card, which is the magus of the eternal gods. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to, yeah, amazing. That's such a, I love that deck. It's so beautiful. So in Austin's 36 Faces, I'm just going to read some excerpts and kind of a few like quotes kind of put together here from my notes. So we're hearkening back just for a moment. Austin says, the implements of war seen in the Aries decans have been beaten into plowshares here. And thus this face connected to all the sciences necessary to draw forth the fruits from the land. The plow is used to break up the soil, but it's not only is it an enduring symbol, but it's not complete in and of itself. Understanding, and here's a quote, understanding our resources wisely, we consider how we might multiply their value. It's important to note that fields in most cases are not literal. The mind, the heart, and the body are all ripe fields which offer abundance when cultivated. And then he goes on to say, I'm going to quote this fragmentary Hellenistic text, the 36 Years of the Zodiac. In this decan locates what are called the charities, or the graces. These are lovely ladies that embody grace, beauty, adornment, dance, song, and other of life's pleasures. The wanton charities do not withhold their gifts from the idol. There's a great temptation in this presence to waste what one possesses. For those who do not plant the harvest, the nightmare becomes all too real, and the experience of scarcity is a cyclical certainty. The true work of this decan lies in the equilibrium of work and pleasure. So I think we'll talk a little bit about more when we move on to T. Susan's book, where she calls this sacred doubt. David, do you want to talk a little bit about Mercury here?
Sure. Diving into what she goes on in her book, T. Susan Chang, you have the Lord of Worry also. The card, the representative card for this decan is called the Lord of Worry, and we're going to go into that in a minute. But I wanted to bring that up with what Elsa was saying because of Mercury being a planet that is about debate and being a planet that is about inserting new data all the time and also adapting to new information that comes from all directions all the time, and being able to select out of the, select is a word that is more applicable to the sun. It's more selective, but still Mercury does get what your luminaries are more used to, what is more like you, what is more in tune with your own vibration, your own energy in the world. And it calls your attention out to that thing in order to allow you to understand something. And so it's constantly calling your attention out to many things, and you have to kind of have a strong mind to direct your thoughts and be able not to get into the flux, the current of thoughts that overwhelms you and takes you, your feelings with it, and thus your actions also, and your life is suddenly quicksand because you don't focus.
Yeah, I want to add here, I didn't realize these notes would fit in perfectly to what you're saying. But yeah, Mercury is 5 of
That's how
Pentacles.
spirit works.
Yeah, exactly. The Five of Pentacles is the, pip card for this, and it's called the Lord of Material Trouble, which is where we get the Lord of Worry. But the four fives in tarot, they all represent the first decans of the fixed signs. And what I thought here is, like, when I was reading about the Five of Pentacles, I was almost feeling like it was giving the Five of Pentacles reversed, or almost the Magus reversed. So if we have Mercury, who doesn't love being in Venus's domicile, we have the Magician, who is generally meaning like skill, adaptation. Okay, so the Magician, being Mercury, is skill, adaptation, originality, self-confidence. But when we see it here kind of represented in that Lord of Worry, it reminded me of when the Magician is reversed, or Mercury is in its reverse position. We see insecurity, ineptitude, weak-willed, kind of those, detrimented Magician card significations.
Definitely. And you have Thesis and Chang comparing the cards, the card that is associated with Mercury for this decan is the Magician within the tarot. And you have the Hierophant being the card for Taurus in general, such as the Emperor was in the previous one. So we each have a version or a few versions of this card. You see the red clothing and the ones that are colored, which signifies the status.
Wait. Magician, you have the hair.
Oh.
Wait. Yep. That's okay. There we go.
Yeah, no, but I was showing the Hierophant, but then I was going to show the
Okay.
Magician also. You got the Magician, obviously, in these other decks, having red clothing as well. This is one of the things that I was going to bring up. You have them being parallel to one another. And this is one thing that Susan T. Chang covers in her book. She goes over a few details of these cards in the more traditional decks, especially the Rider-Waite one, where she associates the clothing and the way that the Magician and the High Priest perform their duties. And it shows, like, but from very different perspectives. And it comes to what Elsa was saying about what was the Lord of, what did you call it?
Yeah, the
before?
Lord of Power is the Magician, and then the Lord of Eternal Gods, I guess, would be the Hierophant. And then the five is the Lord of Material Trouble, which is the Mercury in Taurus card, the pip for this.
Yeah, the Lord of Worry as well.
The Hierophant, it signifies something that is high status in society and is well established by structure, and that uses a lot of that structure's resources, to maintain itself. And it is the head figure for a lot of why society stands the way it does. The Magician is how we can even make those things possible, in a way, is how we put those things together to make them work. The Hierophant, the High Priest, they know the whole thing that the Magician does. They know how to make something happen, they are a magician themselves. They turn something into something else by doing a certain ritual. They make consciousness, they increase your level of consciousness by doing a certain ritual and by representing something. But the Magician does that in a way that is with the everyday thing. It's like with everything and anything that you see in front of you, you can have that openness to do that. And so Thesis and Chang calls it the lockpicker, while the Hierophant would be the key keeper, because it's the one that holds the secret to opening up a particular experience, whereas the Magician knows the secret for being able to have secrets,
Yeah, I feel like the Magician would be like maybe again, Mercury, Logos, the raw power, the individuation, the deconstruction, just like the magic that comes from within, where maybe the Hierophant is like, now it's controlled, it's written in books, it's on your prayer beads, it has a ritual effect, like it's the teacher of the, accumulated craft, in a sense.
Yeah, for example, you have Jesus as a logos for Christianity, which is the one that inspires the whole movement. So Jesus would be the magician in this case. And when you have the Hierophant, you have kind of that ideal established and a figurehead of Peter, for instance, the first pope. That figurehead is kind of someone that establishes how we are going to follow the practice that the logos, the magician, established and revealed at first. So they are very complementary, and they can relate in a very beautiful way to create things. It's an earth sign and materializes things with structure, you know? It's about structure and about things that take time to develop and grow.
Yeah, and I know Mercury is about like trust and daily habituation, like trusting that you can habituate something. And I think the Hierophant sort of becomes that over time. What I think is really interesting is we have, you know, the Magician, which is a beautiful card, the Hierophant, which is a beautiful card, and they almost feel like they're reflecting aspects of one another. But yet in this Decan, we see it representing this cold, the only card that has snow, this impoverished kind of Five of Pentacles, which I think in my mind would be something like it's the Mercury in Taurus, that the Magician takes its fall and it becomes a little bit more like if Mercury falls and the magic isn't in a good place and all you have is the priest or the pope or the whatever, then all you have is the tradition without maybe that magic, and it can become sort of, you know, tainted or abused or fallen in some way. So it could also be like, you know, ritual devoid of juice or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
coming back to that look. Sorry, go on, Matt.
There was something from 36 Faces, the first thing that you read that stuck out to me, which was the weapons and the like instruments of war becoming plows. And so what you guys are talking about makes me think of, as we move through Aries, we have this motion of like becoming separate, severing off from something and moving in like your own direction, whether that's like personally you separate from like your mother and your parents and become like your own person, or, you know, politically you could have like severings of the state and things fracturing into different sections as they're like trying to find their own way of being, or like moving into other places and conquering and like asserting will and dominance. And then finally you get to Venus in Aries 3, and a lot of what you guys talked about last time was the wanting to do good, or maybe you could even insert like achieve your goal, whatever that means, because to you it's probably always going to be good, and being unable to do so. And so you reach the extent of being able to separate and like achieve and persevere in like your own will, and then things can like calcify and stabilize in the figure of the Hierophant. But then what that does is it separates, or it with the figure of the Hierophant, there's always going to be like someone and a group of people who's inside the tradition represented by the Hierophant, the things that are written in the books. And then there's going to be the figure, which is the Magician, who's outside of that authority, who's still trying to act according to its own will and disrupt and negate and argue as Mercury would.
Yes,
and adapt to the present, I would say.
We have sacred doubt, which is what T. Susan Chang calls this. And I feel like that is Mercury's job in this case, is to doubt the people that are telling you what religiously you should do, or to doubt the rules, or I guess in doubt, you're really experimenting with, is it real? What works of it? You know, so it's that sacred.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that coming back to the Lord of Worry with what you're saying and looking at the cards, you see that these people, they can be representatives also of the lovers archetype within the tarot. And these people, they're always leaving temples or places of comfort, and they are seeing it from outside. But what we think of it generally in our mindset in day-to-day life is that we are losing things and that we are going to be left out in the code. But these people might have chosen to be that way. And this is what these cards are speaking about, and what Elsa was speaking about, in the sense that Mercury brings up that sacred doubt. Maybe just because something feels so comfortable doesn't mean that it's going to be in the long term, and sometimes you have to leave it in order to be able to give more space to grow. T. Susan Chang also goes through something in her book where she, an example where she talks about an old farmer with a plowing machine or something, or a bull pulling a cart, a plowing cart. I think that's how you call it, or something. And that's just preparing the earth to receive the seeds. And that uncertainty, if I'm just trusting, having faith, because he's doing all that hard work, he's preparing the earth and spending all that physical energy and all that time and dedication for it to grow, considering that pests might come up, that the weather might not help. So he's trusting, he's having faith, and still performing a ritual, believing that that will lead to success.
And what else could you do? I mean, what else can you do? You must plant the crop and take care of it as though
it's necessity,
going
right?
to be your only harvest. It is
Right.
going to be your harvest, whether rain comes, whether flood comes, whether sunlight comes and you have a big crop, you know, that will be feast or famine, you know. And if you're, you know, so I don't know about the choice of the people here that are injured and lowly and these beggars that are seen in the 5, but I do understand kind of that choice of sacred doubt, of doubting what's being told to you, or even at your expense, right? Being shut out, let's say, from these organizations for certain reasons, like shut out from the church, or, you know, the church has this warm, comfy place and still you see the beggars in the snow. So it's kind of that feeling of like Mercury doesn't get to, I mean, we're hoping that we can use this fallen Mercury for like a sacred doubt. Like, you know what? The crop might not come up. And that is, it could not happen, but I'm still going to take it on as a, you know, responsibility, as a thing that I love, and hope that it will come to some kind of fruition. So I don't know exactly how that all plays out. I see it in this 5 of coins from the Scampini deck as well. It's really interesting. It's different from the rest of them. It doesn't have snow. It doesn't have, you know, paupers or beggars. It has this one person courting, it looks like another person, but in each of the coins, I don't think you'll be able to see it through this card, but you have like destruction. You have like a tower in one, you have like a volcano with these hands from heaven ripping up a field, you have a huge wave coming, like a tsunami coming across a whole city, and then you have this like Father Winter looking figure that's blowing a crop and a house, like the winds basically. So you have in the middle this cart that's being pulled by an ox with a scorpion above it, and in the cart is this huge Mars sign, which I thought was really interesting, that the cart with the ox is pulling this Martian sign from before. So I thought that was really just an interesting way to look at it, where if you think about sacred doubt, you're thinking like, I don't know, should I do this? Look at all the things that could happen to my potential, you know, wealth, or what are we going to build? And it's just, you know, this, for the person who's courted is like turning away, like with this sacred kind of like doubt, like like I don't know. And in general, if we can make it a sacred doubt, then we could probably reach that fallen or that detrimented Mercury, kind of the point here where Austin says the point is to kind of like mix, you know, business and pleasure or whatever it is. Like, don't get too like carried away after all this like Aries stuff. You get into Taurus and then you're just like chillaxing, and when work really needs to be done. So it's a little bit of both, a little bit of faith, a little bit of sacred doubt. Yeah, do you guys mind if I quickly read this? Well, I don't know about quickly, but if you...
yeah, maybe I have one more thing to say before we move on is
okay.
Like you guys are talking about like sacred doubt and like sort of petitioning for things when you know that they're not available right now. And I think like this Decan speaks a lot to how that's inevitable. Like we never know the results of what our actions are going to be, and things always are going to be like looming over us. Like, you know, I might get hit by a car tomorrow, but I still have to attempt to, you know, do all of these things that I need to do to stay alive. And there's always going to be this worry about the future and even about the past, where it's like we had winter that just left and we still have things that are unwrapped up from Aries, and there's all this like devastation from the warfare. We're probably really tired after like sprinting through 3 decades of Aries, but we have to keep going anyway, and we can never know what's going to be happening in the future.
And it's teaching us the meaning of stability, in a sense that it teaches us to be stable. First thing in Taurus, you get into Taurus, you're kind of forced into the state of accepting circumstance in this radical way that is just like forces you to assume any face you need to in order to live, to thrive, to prosper in that particular time frame that you're talking about, however long it is you're going
you're
through
kind
that.
of considering the circumstances, and then as the magician, you're making use of what you have available to you to then move forward.
Exactly. And that's the Taurus background to this mercurial face, right? You're talking about through nurturing resources and fertility, how can you find it, right? The Mercury thing of bringing up questioning and necessity and quickness and change and being changeable, all of that with the background of Taurus is how can I find that abundance?
There's like a stripping of like an idealism where maybe in Aries we're like, you know, it would be great if we had this thing, so let's like do everything we can to do it. And then at the end of Aries we're like, okay, well, you know, we're stuck with this, so might as well.
In Aries many things were given, right? Many things were just I do in Aries 1 and 2, it's just I do it because I can.
Right. Yeah.
Or
like I have the authority, I have the
like
or many things were taken. Many things were taken. And when you get into the agriculture thing, like you realize that you have to give to the land in order for anything to give back to you. And that's what you were talking about, Matt, was reminded me of the thing that I read maybe too quickly through in Austin was, for those who do not plant, the nightmare becomes all too real. The experience, this is the key, this is it. The experience of scarcity is a cyclical certainty.
Right.
It's a cyclical certainty. You can count on it. If you don't do the work,
it's like
you can count on nothing coming.
It might go wrong, but it's also going to if you don't try.
And what I said about choice prior, look at this card that I have from the Apocalypse Tarot. If you pay attention to it, they are leaving by boat. They are literally just sailing away. Like, how do you say it? With those rowing away. Thank you. So you have these coins being left in the trail as they come out, as if they were, you know, the things that they're leaving behind materially. The temple here, back here, what I assume is a temple. But there's this tree. It's raining in the card. Not sure if you guys can see that, but this tree has big leaves where they're hiding themselves from the rain under. So you have this sense of, again, finding it by choice. We chose to leave and we needed to, but here is this opportunity of, you know, adapting to the circumstances. Yes, it's not ideal, but it's also not the worst thing because we managed to keep ourselves dry amongst the rain. You know,
and here we've got that the plants protecting them, or that natural world sort of providing us that womb of shelter. Like we don't know if it's going to be there, but it's definitely not if we don't plant it. And we have this sort of like harken back into like Mother Earth of like, instead of like fighting against each other with those swords, we're beating them into plowshares. I think that's a Bible verse where it's like you're taking all that energy and that weaponry and putting it towards, you know, building, you know, again, we had, you know, this building of the one and then the other, and then, you know, the union of the people. Now we have this, like, it's not every man for themselves, but this community. Like if all of us don't grow food and don't do the work, like,
it is a sense of community as well. I think Susan Chang talks about it in her book, because, you know, you see the lovers in this card. So it's also suggesting communion. It's suggesting that you should, in order to find that abundance, you should also find people who have experiences like you, so you can amplify your needs and get them met from the general collective. You know, finding that resourcefulness in our society means being in society and finding those means through that society, because otherwise you're just gonna have to find some piece of land that isn't touched by man and, you know, try to build a hut in the middle of nowhere and hope you don't get an infection, you know. That's what you can do.
Yeah, I think I think it was cool when I was like, oh, the charities, because like I hadn't read 36 Faces yet. I had read some other stuff, and then I was like, whoa, the charities, because you see like the people outside in the cold, in tatters. They're either pushed out or chosen to be out, or they're out of the society or the church or whatever it is, the warm place. They're out because maybe there's a tragedy of some kind. Like maybe their fields got blown over, their house got blown over, whatever's happening to them. that they're almost like in this lowly place of needing charity. In some of the cards, you see the charity being fulfilled, and some of the cards, you just see the potential of just what happens if tragedy does befall you and you are outside of the group. And in that case, we want to be charitable, right? We want.
And in that case, do you know how to find yourself again? Do you know how to connect with the right people? Do you know how to recognize those right people? How do you, if you've never been in those kinds of situations, if you've never been out in the cold, you know?
There's that sacred doubt too, like who are you going to follow? Like which priest, which church? Like, you know, you best believe when it comes to magic and, you know, habitual ritual practice, that you have someone that you can trust. So it's good to have those drops of sacred doubt. It's good to have that deconstruction that comes with Mercury, even though Mercury is kind of in a weak place here. So I'm going to describe a little bit of that Mercury being in a weak place. If you all don't mind, we can kind of segue. Matt, would you mind putting up the Thema Mundi while I talk about this? Because then if you guys need like a visual, we're just going to talk a little bit. I'm going to read from Antiochus of Athens, where he talks about why Mercury is depressed in Aphrodite's place. And then it talks a little bit, it segues actually into the exaltation of the moon. And so I thought it was perfect to read. And again, why is it that the place where Aphrodite is exalted, there Hermes is depressed? And where Hermes is exalted, there Aphrodite is depressed? We say that it is because Hermes is the master of arguments. And then that's, you know, he has comments on that, which we can go to later. Well, Aphrodite is the overseer of desire and intercourse. Then at the place where the intellectual increases, there the desire and the pleasurable in intercourse is depressed. And where the I don't know, some version of appetite, I think, and pleasure is exalted, there the intellectual is depressed. And again, why is it that the place where the moon is exalted, there is nothing depressed? And where the moon is depressed, there is nothing exalted. We say that because the moon is the fortune of all, and he whom fortune exalts, no one may depress. While he whom fortune depresses, no one is able to exalt.
And just to remind people, Venus is exalted in Pisces. Mercury has its fall in Pisces. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. Kind of interesting that the Mercury exalts itself. And then we have the moon exalted in Taurus. In the degree is actually like 3 Taurus or something. So it's in Taurus 1, it's in this deck, in the moon exalt.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then I just took a couple notes of that, just how Mercury's temples are completely adjacent or neighbors to Venus's temples. So we call that an aversion, but then they do have certain lines of sight. I mean, Gemini to Taurus and Virgo to Libra. But then Mercury shares the air triplicity and the trine aspect from Gemini to Libra, as well as Virgo to Taurus, where the earth triplicity shares this trine again. Libra and Taurus are an aversion. Yeah, they're both Venus ruled. So, yeah, I think that's it, that we just wanted to kind of point that out, why we would see maybe the lowly place of the magician here is that kind of relationship we have, that complicated relationship we have between Mercury and Taurus.
Yeah, I have kind of a funny, not story, but I went to music school, and this thought of like where the intellectual increases, I don't remember what the term was, the like pleasurable or something decreases. And I always thought it was really funny that one of the hardest things it seemed like for people at music school to do was write good songs that were like easy for normal people to listen to, because people have this crazy knowledge of like the craft of music, and they want to put all their crazy chords in it, and they don't want to have a good chorus because they want to have like this unique technical songwriting style. And it's like impressive from a technical mercurial musical standpoint, but it's terrible to listen to and everyone hates it. And there's a reason that like pop music is successful, and like this music school type of music no one ever listens to. So that's always like the metaphor that I go to is like a musician.
That is amazing, because that's exactly what Teach Susan Chang is advocating for in her book, that we need to find a midway, a mid path, you know, between the Hierophant that embodies a certain type of ritual that is stable throughout and, you know, can't have any adjustments, and the magician that doesn't have this particular structure around it, but it can go either way, all the ways possible.
Right.
You have to find a midway, you have a middle path. You have to find that equilibrium. How can I put it? That you were just saying about the music thing, like being popular and having a structure that is beautiful, like the one that you had initially in your head to express your uniqueness. Why don't you find a middle path in that? So when we are in humble situations, we find that it's much easier to bow our heads to anyone who offers a kind of help that we need at that time, even if it's not, up to any kind of praisable standards. It's what you need at that moment, and you will do whatever it takes to get there. And so having that humbleness to do whatever it takes to get you across, and to even execute a certain plan. Do you really have what it takes? Do you really have that ideal, that set, or do you need to leave it behind? Do you need to choose to walk away from it, And that's how life
the idea of like just doing all the worrying, like worrying isn't going to do anything. You go out to sacred Mother Earth, you put your hands and your seeds into the ground and you do your magic. You don't sit there and worry about and sacred doubt, it might not happen, but Lord of worry, are you going to sit and worry the crops aren't going to do well all year? Or are you just going to use that to tend to them? Hold that doubt as a sacred thing that yes, something can happen. And just, I guess the sacred doubt thing shows me how we can sort of rise to the best occasion with Mercury being a little bit lowly in this place.
And a feeling, sorry, go on.
I think too, it's what I was saying earlier, where Mercury exalts itself, there can be an arrogance to that, where Mercury thinks that because it has all the skills and it knows everything, that it is sort of supreme in that way. It doesn't lift anyone else up, it just exalts itself. And being hosted by a planet who does really well in a place where Mercury doesn't, it's like all this skill and know-how can be for nothing if Mercury just kind of whittles away its time, like Elsa was saying. And so this is a place where Mercury has to do what it can, but then, like Dave was saying, find that balance between, okay, I did it, let's kind of just hope for the best.
Mercury is not about faith, and having faith with Mercury is really difficult, right?
Hard,
Jupiter is about faith. And in this particular place, it's asked of us to have faith in the process that we are engaging with through time, and knowing that we have a limited amount of resources and knowing how we can best apply them, And Mercury is immediatist. It likes to see results quickly. It likes to see how things change from one moment to the next and how they feel from one moment to the next. And if you apply that, Taurus is not like that. Taurus likes things that take a long time to grow. And so you have to keep repeating a process there with Mercury and engage with it constantly and keep at it and just hope. Mercury doesn't do very well at that. And I think that's why the Five of Pentacles, even though these are positive cards, is the result of the mixing of them, because it gives anxiety to Mercury to think about the future in that way. It is a future-oriented card. To think about that future in that way, well, what if my effort right now and what I'm leaving behind and what I'm not choosing amongst all the options is what I needed? What if I'm leaving that behind and choosing something that is not going to give me what I want in the future, Or what if the thing is always going to happen the same way and I am fated to this particular result, so I'm not even going to try? So the
I think too, that can be a virtue in the sense of self-reflection and and self-criticism, where we can say, if we're doing a harvest where we planted in this field last year, it didn't grow well, but the one over there, that seems like maybe it would be a better place this year. And so
science and where science and pleasure meet, where I've been really interested in this for a while, as David knows, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but Mercury, I don't want to say the psychopomp as a maybe natural or some type of malefic, but it is this destabilization and it is arguing, and it has a complicated relationship with the benefics. It's in it, with Jupiter, they have detriments in each other's signs. With Venus, they have falls in each other's signs. And so it just has because Mercury is so like movable and changeable and such a deconstructionist, it does have this very interesting relationship with the benefics that I want to talk about more at some
With
point.
fertility.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so the five then can be, the fives speak of like ultimate success or ultimate failure and obstacles in general. Like again, they come with the first decan, they're this fixed signs. They can show us obstacles. Here it's the physical material obstacle that you're looking to sort of overcome. These are trials looking to be overcome. So we have the ideas of toil, labor, land cultivation, building, these knowledge and acuteness of earthly things. And then again, poverty and harshness that can be of our own accord or can be not of our own accord, as we know through astrology, just like fated events, perhaps, that can take us down. So yeah, I think if we feel good about this, we could maybe move on to looking at the clips from Picatrix YavanaJataka. How do you feel about that, you guys?
Yeah, that works for me. So let me just pull them up. So starting with the Picatrix, says, there rises in the first face of Taurus a woman with curly hair who has one son wearing clothing looking like flame, and she is wearing garments of the same sort. This is a face of plowing and working on the land, of sciences, geometry, sewing, and building. This is its form. So I think a lot of what we already said applies here. And I think we can really tie it in with the Five of Pentacles, because if we think this is of toiling the land and of building, this guy right here is not going anywhere. He's trying to make this journey, but he's really not going to make it that far. He can't walk. And so if we think of, and it's the sun with the woman, so it's like Mercury has to have faith in his mother, right? You can't just be like, or I guess you can as a kid, you're always asking your mom questions. You're like, why are we doing this? I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to school. Why can't we do it this way? Let's do it this other way. And so there's this constant questioning and criticism and doubt. But then ultimately, you know, your mom probably knows all the questions that you're going to ask. She knows how to like deceive you into getting you to do what she really wants you to do. And it's like, you're not going to get anywhere without her approval, which is kind of like the whole thing we were talking about with planting, where it's like, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't plant the seed, if you don't kind of play by her rules.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and with the Picatrix, with the mother and son, because I mean, this is a different version. This is the Morgan Greer, but it's basically the same thing as the Rhetorite. You see the mother with the injured son, or the son that has some kind of disability. He's having a cane. He's got, you know, bloody injuries, and it's like a Venus that can't care for her fallen mercurial son. So Venus is, you know, can be mothers and women, and Mercury can be like small children or having kids or something like this, can represent kids or youth. So you've got this sort of fallen son in the mother's arms, where, you know, maybe through certain circumstances, Venus isn't able to care for the son the way that she might want to. And they're forced to like ask for charity, and there might not be a lot of faith, and there might not be a lot of hope.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, true that, you know, injured children are incredibly fussy and they don't want you to help them all the time. And it can be really difficult to like heal a child's wound if it's, you know, if you have like a big cut on your arm and it really hurts. I remember when I was a kid, I didn't want anyone to touch it, and I would just kind of like want it to not be bandaged. And I would doubt that it would even work. So there can be that too.
Yeah.
And Matt's good right now for a flaming clothing kind of simulation, because, you know, he's got kind of a flaming veil going on there.
We love that flaming veil.
But I was thinking about that in terms of, you have also that you have the child representing young people. Mercury represents children as well. And how children, as Matt was saying, have constant demands, and how their needs are always changing from time to time. They're always growing, needing new clothes, needing new apparatuses for, you know, their geniality to grow or something like that. They're always demanding new things. And by the fact that it's a mother, It suggests that feminine side of Earth that is like giving to us all the resources that we have available, you know, to work the way we need things. But the fire in their clothes is just like the way she's doing it is showing by example, by exerting her will, by, you know, fire is about action and it's about embodying spiritual beliefs, you know, through your actions and all of that, and truthful action. And so it's a very, I like all that depiction of being according to the earth and the feminine, according to her rules that you were talking about, Matt, and the way that relates to all that symbolism.
And I think fire is of the mind too, where we a lot of times talk about air being intellectual and like social, but I think fire is really the way that we can like pull in new ideas, like new sciences, new ways to utilize geometry, like it says in the Picatrix.
Yeah,
and it's that they're both, and that they're both wearing the same clothing, so they're kind of working in cooperation. They're doing the same thing. They're like on each other's side, as depicted also in the card.
To me, it's like, yeah, Martian, like praxis. It's like action. It's like, and in also karma means action. So it's kind of like their clothes are burning with this desire for action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and its potential effectiveness too, and its potential improvement, right? Because it's not like we don't farm the same way we did thousands of years ago, which is problematic in its own ways. But we have more food now, you know, and there's abuses involved there, but it's like we've used fire in a lot of ways, like quite literally, to like drive engines and plant things faster and like more productively than before. Mm-hmm. Which
leads to also worry about the future.
Right.
Lord of Worry. Talk about Lord of Worry. Just bring up industrial agriculture.
Climate doom is
okay.
One, yeah.
Do we want to
because we cannot disrupt, like, but that's the exact thing. Climate change is a perfect example of how humanity has developed its own technology and its own spirit in a certain direction that shows that just because you have a plethora of opportunities doesn't mean you should take every single one of them, right? Because they might actually disrupt the whole thing that's keeping you alive, literally, right. Which is the Hierophant. You know, you can consider the Earth, Gaia itself, as a Hierophant kind of archetype in the sense that it has its own rituals, water cycles, wind cycles, and whatever seasons, all of that, that is being disrupted by human activity, right. You know, not in 100%, but because, you know, we are too small to cause that, but we are going to change life itself. Life is going to continue in a way here on Earth for God knows how long, until the suns explodes, I think, or galaxies merge. But the way we know it can change, and our lives might, you know, be threatened by, as a humanity, by our actions. Right. So that equilibrium, I think that Five of Pentacles is what we should feel when thinking about climate change.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do we do with our power? If we have power and we have fire and we have the Aries that, like, you know, everything we've talked about thus far, we've got this martial ability, we've got this drive, and we've got our actions. And like, when we can see what happens when they're not in alignment with like the highest form
ideals, with the higher ideals that we claim to follow.
And I think Mercury like doesn't care necessarily. It's just like, you know, I figured out this new thing to do, like, let's do it, who cares?
Technology, like, right? Let's just see what it does.
Let's just see what it does, right? And like,
just a tool, you can't even blame it. It doesn't have a form for you to blame it.
And like, we've talked about honorable mentions as you guys talk.
Like, we've talked recently about like Jupiter, or like maybe even the sun being like the law, like the capital L law, and Mercury being the lawyer. And Mercury does not care about the law. Mercury only cares about winning the court case and like twisting and manipulating the law to win its case.
Absolutely. I hate it when that gets confused, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a big pet peeve to me, because the benefics are law, right? Yeah. So Venus is talked about as law. Jupiter is most definitely law. You have Sun maybe as an archetypal, like universal law, something maybe, but you've got Venus and Jupiter being the law, being goodness. And again, you have that sort of like Mercury, can we say it's a type of opposition or deconstruction, right, where it's just like, I'm going to argue your law, and get this guy off, or you know what I'm saying?
I'm
And
gonna
it
find the tiny little hole in it that I can like weasel through, you know.
yeah,
And
for
like,
better or worse, you know, like, and it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't necessarily matter to the lawyer. They're there to represent their client to the best of their ability and use the law to do so. So
yeah.
it's really, really interesting. YavanaJataka, Liber Hermetic.
Yes. I forgot that I was doing the readings.
No, it's okay. No.
Okay, so I think next is from the Liber Hermetis, and these are all just really short. So Taurus 1 says it has the whole body of the buried Osiris adorned with gold and dark tie strings. It has the head of a bull and a queen's crown and 2 elephant trunks. In the middle of the horns stands the goddess herself. So the bull is the symbol of Taurus. Obviously, the queen could be Venus or the moon being exalted, and the buried Osiris, I didn't know who Osiris was, I looked it up right before this, is the god of the dead. So there we have Mercury again being able to go into the underworld, come back out, and also representing the king, because I guess what would happen was the pharaoh would die and then he was imagined to like reunite with Osiris afterwards. And so we could think of perhaps the Hierophant being like a political figure as well, or at least like the hand of a political figure, or perhaps the king maybe isn't even the one in charge. It's really
The Pope.
The Pope, right? The Pope is sort of handling things through like an ideological, religious, intellectual standpoint.
Yeah, and I like also that, you know, I mean, I think it's the next Decan of Taurus that brings like the luck or whatever, but the elephant trunks, you know, like just that kind of auspicious overcast in a certain sense, because we've got these really cool like major cards, and then again we've talked about the poverty that even can exist within those ideals. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool hearkening as well.
David, do you have any thoughts on that, or should I read the next one?
No, you can go on. I'm appreciating everything you guys are saying. I had some thoughts on actually I had some thoughts on the everything you guys were saying about the magician previously being like multiple, and I just wanted to show the lemniscate on top of the magician's head, symbolizing that, while the Hierophant has the crown sort of thingy, like the
Yeah, that's interesting. The infinity, again, it's like it's the magician is like completely one with the cosmos, with this logos, like internal, like spirit. And then I guess for better or worse, the Hierophant without its corruption is like a leader that can teach us those ways, teach us those mystery schools, initiate people into those mystery schools, and at its worst, can abuse those magical powers to subjugate the people.
Right. And it's also, I think, worth noting that the magician is younger than the Hierophant, and also the like balding men that the Hierophant is preaching to. And so there's a youthfulness always with Mercury that we've discussed a lot. And there's like an energy of contrariness, because you step into this world and you're like, this is dumb, I don't want to do this way, this only works for old people or for like things that have been established. And so then maybe we also get like Osiris, this god of death, and Mercury being able to go into the underworld, and Mercury saying, well, you know, I'm at least as comfortable in the underworld as I am here, so like why would I stay and play by your rules when I can just go somewhere else?
Yep.
You also see like Mercury, exactly, the Hierophant is pointing up, and in the other hand it has a scepter, and the magician is pointing down and up, so representing kind of that, also that Baphomet. I'm not sure if that's the
Baphomet, where he has the same symbol up and down. Yeah,
because like as above so below, guys, you know.
And you'll see it in the devil card. So Baphomet is the symbol, you know, the horned one from the devil card, which will be super fun once we get to it. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm excited about it. It's the Capricorn card.
Hey! Okay. Teucer or Antiochus?
Rhetorius is
Rhetorius. Yep.
And this one is very short. This says, in the first decan of Taurus, it makes the native rich from others and well-known. And then I'll just read the YavanaJataka too. It says, a black woman, happy as her mind is agitated by sidelong glances. Round her neck she wears a garland full of kadamba flowers. She shines forth holding an axe in her hand. Her body is bowed down to by cowherds. So another thing that I thought was kind of interesting was the Kadamba flower. I hope I'm saying that right. Is the flower is used in like perfumes and incenses, and the wood is used for paper. So there we have like a fruitful joining of Venus and Mercury. I'm not sure what I can make of the holding an axe in her hand. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's from the past decans. They have the axe there. I mean, and obviously this stuff has been, you can even read extensively in Demetria's book how like all this stuff comes together. There's lots of different traditions. This isn't like the one word on the deal, but I think it shows us that sort of wild, unbridled kind of, again, plows into pruning hooks, or you know, swords into pruning hooks and plows, shares and things like that, taking the axe. And she's bowed to by cowherders. So you've got the bull there, the cows, you've got that Krishna kind of consciousness. You have the, you know, the cowherders, the Krishnas bowing to this goddess who's, you know, obviously agriculture again is kind of hearkened in there, or that raw power of Taurus one is what it kind of speaks to me about.
Right.
Again. Yeah.
Right. So we're still feeling kind of the inertia of the like conflict and assertion of Aries and the heat of the fire and battle.
For sure.
And we haven't quite like put down the axe yet. The other thing was
battling, you're battling Mother Nature to try to, you know, you could say you're battling Mother Nature.
Right.
You could say you're
well, she'll let you die. She'll just like, you know what I mean? She's not going to kill you necessarily, but if you don't do anything, she doesn't care, you know?
Yes. So you still have to, I felt like, to me, it was a carryover, a little bit of a carryover,
Well,
still seeing that symbolism.
If you were in her position, just think about it. I've given everything, you know. I've given the body, I've given the opportunities, I've given the aquarium for you guys to go around and have your fun.
And you're still complaining.
You don't get to ask me anything else, you know.
Yeah, and all we do is complain. Just all people do is complain. But we also see happy as her mind is agitated by sidelong glances. So maybe this here is where Mercury is just fine and maybe even kind of exalts in being a little bit of an outcast, and like having the contrary opinion. And it's like, you all are believing this one thing and like I can see through it, and like I kind of revel in the fact that you all dislike me for that.
You know, it's a side eye, it's a sacred doubt. It's like, really? And then it's also just like, you know, in Hindu culture, like, you know, Kali or, you know, Linga Bhairava, or even Bhairava or Bhairavi, you got this black skin representing primordial power. And, you know, obviously we know now this kind of like black pigmentation can come with exclusion as well. So it's like the most sacred, yet the most sort of abused, kind of like Mother Earth. Like the black skin could be like the soil of the earth, you know? And so I kind of got, maybe that's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but that had some deep sort of symbolic vibe for me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So that was the Yavana. Do we have Tusser? Otherwise I can pull it up. That's the Antiochus quoting Tusser. Which I think is probably the exact same thing as everybody else.
Yeah, this is the exact same as Rhetorius, where it just says it makes the native wealthy from someone else and esteemed. So I think maybe this is getting back to like the charity, and the fact that, you know, it's like when we grow food, it's given to us from something else. It's like we didn't produce it out of our own bodies in the same set. Like we put our labor into it, but it's coming to us from another source.
Yeah, you're wealthy from somebody else. You're at their charity or their mercy, whether it be Mother Earth or, you know, the beggars who are at the sort of the ascetics that are at the charity of the community. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also true, like the Hierophant, or like the religious, like the church makes its money from tithes, like they don't sell anything.
True. And they apparently are there to sort of like do charity in the community. Apparently they're there to clothe the people and feed the people and things like that. Yeah, that's a really good point, that the church gets their, you know, stuff through charity and donation. Interesting. Yeah. And so do, you know, yogis and teachers of all kinds. Like it's a passion, it's a love project or a passion project, right? When you're a teacher, like not necessarily are you always revered or paid well or things like this, and you know, not are you going to always use your charitable power for the best uses as well.
Yeah, and it makes me think too, like we were talking earlier of this Decan being about like just community and other people, where in Aries it was all like, I am creating things, I'm going to take it for me. But then in Taurus now we have to be in a position where it's like, okay, well, I don't really have anything, so can I borrow some food or something?
Yeah, getting rich on one's own accord versus getting rich off others contribution. That's really interesting.
Or at least the perception of being able to build wealth on your own is perhaps now shattered.
Yeah, the perception, and that is usually through some kind of conquest, which is debatable if that's your claim.
Right, the self-made.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do we want to move on to notable nativities? Let's start with Da Vinci, shall we? I mean, do we have anything to say? We got Da Vinci, we've got Uma Thurman, who, we love. One of my
I mean, Da Vinci was a painter. Da Vinci was an artist. That's Taurian enough, but living on other people's money. Like, he was paid to basically be an artist and live out of his craft. I think he was from a nice family. I'm not sure of his background. I'm not a historian.
I think he was like middle class, and he was also like a crazy inventor. Like, he invented a ton of things, and
so very mercurial as well, right? Like, he
dissected bodies. He was known to like not grave rob, but they would the churches would supply bodies for artists at the time to dissect.
The churches would supply bodies to do mercurial things. Interesting.
He's a magician archetype for sure, and one of Renaissance's figureheads, I would say.
Sorry if that was triggering. We're just like, bodies. Okay, sorry, guys. And then we've got Queen Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth. Well, as she comes to the close of her life, soon enough, she has lived a very long life and has had a very stable reign. Even though they might sell it as if, the monarchy was at peril of falling all these times. No, it wasn't really.
Is she the longest reigning ever? Yeah.
In England, yes. I'm not sure if in the world, probably also, England, but she is everlasting.
Like 60 years or something, right?
Yeah, she's everlasting like a gobstopper. And you see that Taurian quality in her. She also has a Mercury very angular in her chart in 4th house, and she is one of the queen that has kept up with technology. Her predecessors did a little with radio, telephone, electricity, but she was the one that oversaw the most technological advance within a short period of time, within her lifetime.
Right.
And persistence and longevity, like you said, with those Taurus qualities, but also, right, like you said, like you mentioned, the monarch, the money coming from, not the money coming from other people, let's just say, from whether it's inheritance.
In the 5 of Pentacles ideal, it's just that she started her reign in a period that was right after a huge recession because of the war, and England was still not in its best scenario, so she had a very non-lavish, it was lavish, but non-lavish for a royal kind of marriage. Right. Her dad's coronation back in the day was also not that sumptuous, or her coronation was also not that sumptuous as the previous ones had been. It was sumptuous, but so you have all these qualities of, I shouldn't be on the throne, but I have to accept and conform to my duty because it's my family's duty. She embodies that archetype of adaptability that the 5 of Pentacles is trying to convey here. And she also is the one that learned to flirt with the media, learned to have that royalty talk with the media throughout her decades of reign. Like, her children were the ones who grew up under the scrutiny of paparazzi. She didn't grow up under the scrutiny of paparazzi. They respected her when she was growing up, but not her children, So she was the one that oversaw all of that as well, and saw how media can harm the monarchy directly in several occasions.
Yeah, and I think also she's royal authority is much more limited than it used to be. Even her, if you go 2 monarchs back, they had much more power, and so now, if we're moving,
they never had
Aries,
they never had so little agency.
Yeah, she does nothing now, basically.
What's the queen's sort of, I don't really know, what's her sort of enmeshment with the church, like the popes and
she's the head of the church. She is the pope.
That's Okay, so she is
Yeah.
the Hierophant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a
back
time
in
of-
in the 1500s, the Church of England split with the Catholic Church. They became the monarchs, became the heads of the church.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. I think that's pretty pretty right on. Jack Nicholson.
Man of the Axe.
yeah.
Thank you.
Melania Trump. So she is getting her money from others, perhaps.
Yeah.
The one that I thought was cool is Amber Heard, because the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard just started a couple of days ago and will probably still be like live and kicking during, I don't know about the full of this Decan, but the trial is going to be living its life with inside of Taurus 1. So I thought that
Didn't she get like hit with a phone? Didn't he throw a phone at her face once? Isn't that like one of her famous
I
stories?
can't go with the alleged this or that. I'm souped up in the trial. I don't know. I don't know.
I was just thinking like a phone, such a mercurial device, and he
Yeah.
threw it at
Oh,
her
they
face.
had so many, domestic disputes and like drugs and like other people's money. That was one of the people trying to slander her on the stand about like her not having any money and being on Johnny Depp's like payroll, and her like undercutting her employees and not paying them more than $25 an hour for like all these private services, like her personal assistant, essentially. It's a big like drawn out drama. I don't know what side I fall on. I'll stay mercurial in this sacred doubt moment, but I just thought it was interesting that this big trial was ensuing in her Decan. Yeah.
I was just thinking too of Jack Nicholson in The Shining, where he at the end, they change it from the book actually, where in the end he
Right.
in the book, spoilers, the hotel explodes at the end of the book and kills him, but in the movie he's freezes to death in a hedge maze like outside of the hotel.
Yeah, but that's still the image of the mother and the child, right? Running away from them.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and the mother and child get away. Yeah. He's like the caretaker of this hotel that's like very haunted.
Yeah, you see how that applies? The Five of Pentacles actually applies so interestingly here, because you have that figure of the mother and the child having to choose to run away from this scene that is apparently comfortable. Taurus, a huge lush hotel with everything they should need inside, but it's still, they're forced to run away by circumstance and by a crazy man with an X.
And hotels are also mercurial dwellings.
Yeah.
And like at one point they lock him in a freezer too, which is also kind of Five of Pentacles.
Right, because it's the only card that has snow.
Yeah, like anything with ice. Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies. I love The Shining. I love too that Stephen King hates it. Stephen King was like, "You made this movie to hurt people," and what's his face? Stanley Kubrick was like, "Yeah, duh."
Whoa.
And Kubrick was like abusing. What was it? Shelley Duvall was like completely abusive to her on set and would like make her do like 50, 100 takes and like yell at her between takes and like not feed her and stuff.
Oh God.
It was like a messed up. I mean, Kubrick was a crazy guy, but
yeah, we can maybe dissect some of these like charts sometimes with all their nuance and everything. So on that note, do you guys have anything? I think we're about wrapped up with a couple nativities. This was a really, really fun one to do. I'm so happy you were able to come, Matt. Thank you again.
Yeah, no, I had a great time always with you guys.
So before we get into our plugs, like I'm happy you had a good time. It's so fun to work with you. And before we get into like plugging our projects, the three of us are doing a project together. This is our big like reveal, I guess, at the end of the at the end of the video. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about it, what we're planning to do?
The goal basically is to have like a community where you can come and study with other astrologers, right? Where we're not necessarily going to be teaching, but we're going to start. Do you want to tell what we're going to start
I want to.
Okay, so we're going to start with a reading of Demetra's new book. We're probably going to meet like once a month. We're hoping to start up in late June.
Yeah, Ancient Astrology Volume 2.
Ancient Astrology Volume 2. And we're very excited about it. Like,
because we just got the email, like I've been wanting to do this book club essentially through this channel, like put out little things. And so this has been going for a while. Like some of you guys might remember, like maybe some of the people that like I studied with before, we had this book club thing on Patreon. But now I think we're going to do a book club on Demetra George's second volume and just all study it together and stuff like that. So we'll do like meetups and whatever. It's all up on Patreon, actually. If you go over there, you'll see kind of the layout. But I just got the email that the book is on the way, so it shouldn't be too long. So we were like hoping maybe we could talk about doing this study group by the time we recorded this. We were like, no, let's not announce it until, you know, the book is like coming. But then we got the email, it's on its way. So super excited.
In the next couple of months, we are going to arrange how the meetings are going to happen. We're going to bring more details to you guys so you can be able to decide what works best for you all. We're going to come up with more offerings besides the study group sessions that we're going to have as well through time. So yeah, you just stay in tune and we'll be announcing this in the following weeks.
Yeah. And like the three of us and a couple other people have a group where we meet frequently and study. And it's really like we've all grown so much as astrologers, like unbelievably quickly compared to studying alone. It helps so much to discuss things with other people, and just like the social aspect of it, where I have like one friend in real life who's an astrologer, but it can get pretty isolating, especially when like something happens in real life and you're like, oh my God, this is like totally the transit. And then like the person you're with is like, shut up, I don't care.
I know,
like,
it's like, that's exactly right. And just access to, like, not everybody's going to have access to the book right away. And that's what I was thinking about doing these study buddy things. It's like, not everybody has access to the courses, which is how we met each other through the courses. Not everybody has access to the social aspect. And so we want to make that available. And we just want to we know that everybody's going to be discussing this book and like freaking out about it and talking about the chapters and da 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 da. So we just want to do that with you all. So we want to invite you to be a part of just like discussing the book with us, reading it and getting down on the hype. We'll do like charts, we'll do the techniques, and we'll just be
providing a space where people can do astrology and we can just grow the practice, you know, in the community itself and the sense of community within practitioners, because that's the thing I think we need to do in this technology era, because it allows us to do that. You know, we should take full advantage of that because astrologers don't generally connect throughout history that often.
Yeah, and it's like we all live thousands of miles. Like I live on the East Coast, you know, Elsa's in the Midwest and David's in South America. It's like we're nowhere near each other.
Yeah, and the international.
It's not like we have companies. Sorry.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not like we have companies where we all meet in offices and we can get together and talk about the things that we love and practice, you know? So these spaces, I feel like the more we have them, and this is like a stimulus for more practitioners out there to kind of do the same, you know? Just open these platforms for people to get together and
it's my favorite way to engage. Yeah, it's my favorite way to engage. Like, I just want to engage this book. Basically, I've been so excited to do it, and it's like, why engage it in just like our private space if we can invite you all to be there with us? So that's the plan. And then we have, I don't know if it's too early to mention this, but just if you do go check out the Patreon, I think we're going to start in June with the book, approximately. Wait for everybody to get their books and stuff like that. We're going to do a YouTube companion that's free. And then we have, I put in like not a sliding scale, but I put in an option for people to choose. This is, you know, just for those of you who are interested, but you might not have the funds, like myself. Like, I can't just join a bunch of Patreon groups, but we do have like a tier where you can pay a really, really low nominal fee. Like if you're coming from another country, because this is an international group, like most of the people that I'm hanging out with here in the Astro community, super international. So if you have a hard time with the exchange rate or any other like financial like woes or worries, speaking of the 5 of coins, if you're in that 5 of coins like spot, no need to, you know, feel bad about it. We've got an option for y'all, so hit us up over there.
Come join our Hierophant club.
Yeah. Student teacher vibes. We just want to like exactly. Mercurial, just dive in, talk about stuff together. So you'll see it over there. So that's our big thing, and I'm super extremely pumped about it. As far as that, where can people find you all? Like, let's talk about maybe Matt, you can tell us about your venues and what you're open for as far as if you're doing readings and things.
Yeah, so I have my YouTube channel, The Astrologer's Encyclopedia. And like I said, it's a similar goal to this book club where it's just like, I just want people to be able to learn astrology. Because I think it's one thing to like be getting readings and like maybe you'll watch like transit reports and stuff, but it really comes alive when you just learn even like some of the language and you can start to recognize things on your own. And it really like, it's made my life so like magical. So I post videos every other Thursday. I'm hoping to get more into like doing interviews and stuff. I have to like work a part-time job, so it's on my off hours. And then my readings are, I'm reopening my books today, which is, I'm assuming this is going to come out probably not for several days at least.
Couple days.
Yeah, so my readings will be open by the time this video comes out. And I don't have a website yet, but the best place to find me is on Twitter at @the_Astropedia. There will be like a link tree. And I'll have like a scheduling page. I'll have a link to my YouTube, a link to my writing. And yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that. Again, such a good resource. Making this elite astrological knowledge available on YouTube is so dope. And obviously, thanks Chris Brennan for the Thema Mundi that we put up there. Chris Brennan has so many resources on the Astrology podcast. We're not, you know, we're just trying to get resources out there to people and do it in our own way as well, you know. But that's a good resource for you guys as well. And it was a resource for all of us, you know.
Yeah, he is a huge like inspiration. And it's so hard to get good information. There's so much of it that's really honestly like low quality and superficial. And it's like, go ahead and do all the, you know, superficial astrology that you want. But if you really want to like learn how to predict things and how to like just have it in your life in a real way, then that's what I'm trying to do.
Awesome. And David, in the first place, you want to talk to us about your stuff?
Yes, that's my brand. I have a website called In the First Place Astrology, and you can access it at infirstplaceastrology.com. I also have In the First Place Astrology as my Instagram handle, and you can find me on Facebook as well with that name. You can message me directly in any of those platforms. I have a YouTube channel called In the First Place, where we are doing a companion series to this one for the minor arcana. We're diving in a little bit more into the tarot symbolism, speaking a bit of the cards a little more deeply. And Darren is actually following that path with us in that other channel. He's another ginger friend of mine. So we only associate ourselves with soulless individuals. No, I'm joking. But we have
we collect gingers.
Yeah.
No shade for the gingers.
I sold mine years ago, so it's fine.
So yeah, that's it. You guys can find me there. I offer tutoring sessions for beginner astrologers that want to learn how to dive in deep to the techniques, predictive techniques such as zodiacal releasing, perfections, monthly, nearly, and many other things that I can offer you. Horary, elections, yeah, those types of things. Just check that out.
Awesome. Yeah. And the companion to this is meant to be kind of like a short take, because I did have a friend who was like, yeah, I love it, but it takes me so long to get through these hour videos. She's a mom. She has multiple, you know, kids. She's at home in the day, young kids. So they both go really well together. It's not like we're just regurgitating the same information. D from Sunchild Tarot does his whole thing with the Goetia. And then David and I just kind of like sum up and recap what we talk about in these videos in like a short and concise way that you can just like consume in a quick car ride or something like that. So you have both kind of the long form and the short form is how we were kind of trying to do it. As far as my offerings, website's not up, but you can contact me. In the About section, you have my contact. Once the website does come up, though, just remember this for the future. For the rest of the year, I'm going to be running a little bit of a special on my readings, and they will fill up because I don't have that many slots available. So if you want to book a reading prior to that launch, you'll probably have an easier time choosing your availability, choosing your times and stuff like that. So hit me up just through email. We'll set something up. And I do pretty much all of the standard Hellenistic stuff. So, all right. I think that wraps up the first Decan of Taurus. Thank you all again so much for being here. So fun. And we will see you next time. Ciao.
Bye.
Matao kakao bersama you demikian soba da soba kena matahiba nakau di mawa demikian soba and soba ataiba nabe ujuno